or a prisoner of this war. If you look at what's happening in Europe, you will see exactly what is happening in America. Only because we have a completely complicit and sold out media who are given to the socialist New World Order, no nation under God, but one world under God, meaning all nations are the same to those in the media. No, they're not all the same. That's why we're being invaded by millions upon millions of people from the third world. Let's call it what it is. The destitute, impoverished, backwards, lawless third world is taking over America with the complicity of the senile corpse in the White House and those around him. Make no mistake about it, they want to annihilate everything that you know about this great nation. And so before I get into the history of this issue of borders, language, and culture, which I've already gotten into, those are my three words which have and will shape the future of civilization. Borders, language, culture. I wrote them in 1994 when I began in radio, and I created the Paul Revere Society. And I tried to define in as simple terms as I could for the average individual what defines a nation. Borders, language, and culture. There is not a nation on earth that has not and is not defined by those three words. Whether you read the history of the ancient Greeks or the ancient Romans, or you look at monuments such as Stonehenge, which were recently defaced by radical lesbian feminists who spray painted this iconic structure in England. In the name of what? You think it was really in the name of oil, anti-oil? Why were these Neolithic rings, tombs, and dwellings defaced by radical lesbian feminists? Because they're mentally ill and they hate the patriarchy. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'd rather begin with a prayer by reading from the Old Testament, mainly one of my favorite prophets, Isaiah. And I'll just begin where I begin. There's so much in Isaiah. You can begin wherever you want. I'll begin where I have underlined some passages over the years. Let me begin here. For behold, the Lord of hosts, doth take away from Jerusalem and from Judah stay and staff, every stay of bread and every stay of water, the mighty man and the man of war, the judge and the prophet, and the diviner and the elder, the captain of 50 and the man of rank, and the counselor and the cunning charmer, and the skillful enchanter, and I will give children to be their princes, and babes shall rule over them, and the people shall oppress one another, every man his fellow, and every man his neighbor. The child shall behave insolently against the aged, and the base against the honorable. For a man shall take hold of his brother of the house of his father. Thou hast a mantle, be thou our ruler, and let this ruin be under thy hand. In that day shall he swear, saying, I will not be a healer, for in my house is neither bread nor a mantle. You shall not make me ruler of a people, for Jerusalem is ruined, and Judah is fallen, because their tongue and their doings are against the Lord, to provoke the eyes of his glory. They wrought evil upon themselves. A babe is their master, and women rule over them. Well, I'll pause there. A babe is their master, and women rule over them. Isaiah. There's so much that I can add to that, but there's no need to do that. I've already made the statement. There's no point in repeating the statement. So we can call this borders, language, and culture. because this morning I received an email at 5 a.m. I wake up at dawn, no matter where I sleep, where I am. Every morning, when the minute any light comes through the bottom of the blackout curtains, I wake up. I'm on the cycle of nature. So I woke up and looked at my device, and I received this email from someone who's very intelligent. It was an excerpt from an article, and it's about what's going on in France, where they're fighting for their survival against the Muslim invasion. The hordes of Islam have taken over Western Europe. Sweden is almost non-existent. The Vikings are either in prison or feminized. So we read in France, a victory could see Bardella under Le Pen's guidance turn France into a laboratory in the heart of Western Europe for aggressive anti-migration policies, including accelerating deportations and making citizenship harder to obtain. His words suggest he separates immigrants into two camps: desirable ones, like those of his own predominantly Italian family who assimilate, learn French, and love their adopted nation, and those, particularly from Islamic countries, he views as rejecting French values, language, and culture. I don't know whether he read any of my books, but Borders, Language, and Culture. I'm live on X right now with this talk on this Sunday morning. We're at the end of the long July 4th weekend. Long weekend of independence. Fireworks, firecrackers, hot dogs, bologna, salami. And how many know what it was about? It was a fight for independence from the colonialist British that forged this nation. And right now, we are not fighting for our independence. We're fighting for our survival. We have a phony, senile internationalist in the White House. There's no other way to define him. A phony, senile internationalist in the White House. He may as well be speaking in Esperanto, the one world language that has been dreamed of for a long period of time by those who want to annihilate nationhood. Is it a good thing to annihilate nationhood? Annihilate the memory and the borders, language, and culture which have defined nations from the beginning of civilization? I've been a student of Native American life, Indians, if you want to call them that, Native Americans, more accurately, Amerindians in America. And the entire story of all of these tribes, all with different languages, all with different cultures, by the way, and with their own borders, and they fought over those borders. They fought for every piece of land that they had with each other and then against the American troops. Wars for the Black Hills, Red Cloud, Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, and Lakota resistance. Where is the resistance in America against this invasion? This crusade against America. We are living through the Crusades all over again. And instead of having a nationalist defending us from the Crusades by the Islamists, we have instead a senile internationalist in the White House who has welcomed in millions upon millions upon millions of illegal aliens, many of whom hate this nation to its core. They hate our borders, they hate our language, they hate our culture. All they want is the greenback so they could sit in their rotten, stinking government-subsidized apartment, collect the check that I pay for with my hard work, I, an immigrant son, what I worked for, every dollar that I pay this rotten, stinking government. How much of it goes to protect me? It goes to support the bums, the filthy bums sitting in their welfare apartments, breeding children and dreaming of the day there will no longer be European Americans in this nation. Or when our numbers are sufficiently small, they can round us up and do as they wish with us. I know these are harsh words, but I've summed up the war we are in. We are living through the Crusades all over again. Only instead of the Muslims invading on their own, we have enemies within who have welcomed them in to invade us from within. Now, it's not just Muslims. I'm aware of that. We have corrupt churches, corrupt synagogues. We have Catholic charities welcoming in millions and millions with bringing them in, giving them citizenship cards in their own countries to America. Passage, free passage, direct passage, Catholic charities. The great Pope who talks about we should be welcoming. We should be welcoming to all those who want to overrun us, destroy us, annihilate our borders, language, and culture. Is it because the Pope is benevolent? Is it because the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, who has planted one of their own into the head of the Department of Homeland Security? That's right, Mayorkas, that strange man with the weird head, DHS head, used to be on the board of Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. Think about this. Just think about this. Think for a few minutes if you think this is all happening out of benevolence and love for the immigrant. It's as much for the hatred of the indigenous Native American, meaning us, me. I'm a Native American. I was born here in 1942. I'm a Native American. My father was an immigrant. I'm a first-generation American. But I'm a Native American. I was born here. And where are our Native Americans? Where have they gone? Well, they're here. It was their land for 20,000 years, long before the Europeans arrived. And what happened to them? Go and look at what they happened. Go and see what happened to these people. Wars everywhere you turn. Wars for the plains. Mapping Indian lands. The white man goes into his church and talks about Jesus. The Indian goes into his teepee and talks with Jesus, says, Quanah Parker, a Comanche, founder of the Native American Church. It's chilling to read this stuff. I got chills up my spine. You see these proud, amazing warriors. They weren't just sideshow freaks for the amusement of the invading armies. No, not at all. That's their land that was taken from them by force, by deceit, by murder. Tribes of the Arctic and subarctic, tribes of the Southwest, tribes of the Southeast, the civilized tribes, the uncivilized tribes, if you want to call them that. Wherever you turned, there was a culture, difference in culture and difference in languages. Even amongst the Native Americans, differences in languages. There was not a single Native American language. Now, of course, many of you are ignoramuses and you say that they deserve to be conquered by the Americans and civilized and turned into good Christians. That's because you're an ignoramus. You have no idea what their cultures were like. Oh, don't think I'm glorifying the Native American and calling them all the noble savage. I am not. I know what they did to each other. They fought with each other and tortured each other if they conquered the other people just as well. I'm aware of that. But did we civilize them by turning them into drunks on wastelands? That's your idea of civilization? I don't think so. So wherever you turn, what you see is conquest, domination, and destruction. Conquest, domination, and destruction. Only throughout most of history, it was done through invasion by armies. Armies had to cross land barriers and lands and seas to conquer another nation. But in our age, we've had for quite a few administrations, with one exception, an invasion from within, ushered from within. Come on over the border. Come on over the border, have 16 children. We'll pay you to have children, and we'll abort our own children. We'll pay you to have children, and then we'll tell our people that children are ugly and disgusting and we should abort them. But we want your children. We want your children to speak the polyglot languages of the world so we can annihilate English. We can wipe out our borders. We can bastardize our culture so that people don't even know what our culture was. And then we'll have an ideal world, a dream world. A dream world. It's demonic, actually, when you think about it. So, in my spare time, I like to look at things like history, Stonehenge. I opened the show talking about Stonehenge, this ancient, iconic English monument, defaced just a few weeks ago by radical lesbian feminists who spray painted Stonehenge with orange paint in the name of anti oil, mentally ill people, living rocks on the Salisbury Plain of England. The structures of Stonehenge were attacked. And instead of giving these people life in prison, these radical, crazed feminists were probably invited into the 10 Downing Street for a cup of tea with the incoming communist government. Wherever you look in history, whether it's China during the Taiping Rebellion, we'll talk about China another time. Look, wherever you look, you will see conquest and a battle for survival. And you will see some who survived the invasion, and were not conquered. Those were the Christian armies during the quote Crusades. I'm searching for a nice picture for you. I can show you a beautiful picture that I wanted you to see. You look at the Parthenon. You probably learned about it in college. Glory of Zeus. This incredible picture. Glory of Zeus. We all grew up studying Greek civilization, Roman civilization, English civilization, and how we got here as a nation. And now we wake up to a senile internationalist named Joseph Biden, bringing us down, collapsing the pillars of our society, the enemy within, tutoring the mobs from the third world on how to invade us. What's going to happen? The Parthenon, here it is. This is what I was looking for. Studied in colleges and high schools when I was a child. We read the great philosophers, Plato, even if it was a small piece of it, we knew who Plato was. We knew who Aristotle was. We knew about Greek civilization, Roman civilization, English civilization. We knew about it all. But we know nothing now. Now you have animals rubbing their crotches and looting stores. That's our civilization. Rubbing their crotches and playing boom boxes till 3 a.m. and breaking into grocery stores and cleaning them out. And our governments do nothing to them. They could send the military into those communities and arrest the criminals, build new prisons. That's what we need in this country. We need hundreds of new prisons in this nation. And we need massive deportations. Massive deportation. There should be an endless line of airplanes and ships taking them out of this country, removing them. You start with the latest wave and then you work your way backwards. Borders, language, culture. So I begin today with a long introduction. You can call it God Talk, Borders, Language, and Culture, because I was reminded today about what's going on by Le Pen and how Western Europe is actually fighting for its survival with a cultural crusade, which is going to have to become a military crusade within their own nations. They're not going to be able to get rid of the Islamists through conversation. Anti-migration policies sound very good on paper, but they're not going to happily get into a deportation plane. It's going to take what the Israelis are doing in Gaza to get rid of them. Oh, yeah. Mark my words. Oh, yeah. It's going to take what the Israelis are doing in Gaza to cleanse Europe of the invading barbarians. So I went back to my first big best-selling political book. I had written other books before these in the health field, nutrition, homeopathy, herbal medicine for many years. I've always been a crusader for the good of the people. And I wrote this book, and it became a raging New York Times bestseller in 2002. I can't believe the time has gone so fast. Michael Savage, The Savage Nation, Saving America from the Liberal Assault on Our Borders, Language, and Culture. And I looked through it. I said, boy, oh boy. I wrote, Wake Up America, our borders, language, and culture are being threatened, and it's up to us as principled, patriotic citizens to defend and protect the freedoms we cherish. If the price of liberty is eternal vigilance, declares Savage, then only a more savage nation will enjoy those liberties. Ha ha, only a more savage nation. What happened to the J6 folks? Where are they now? Many of whom were just observers. They weren't even the violent ones. They went after them as near as now. They're still rounding them up. Even people 75 years old who were just in the plaza being rounded up. Anybody who stood up for our nation and our sovereignty was arrested by this internationalist gang of socialist criminals. We are Americans first, I wrote. America became a country that benefited from the blending of the best of all immigrant cultures. Think about that one sentence. America became a country that benefited from the blending of the best of all immigrant cultures. We were called a melting pot. When I grew up, I was told America is a melting pot. So in my classroom as a kid in the Bronx, there were Jews, Christians, white people, a few black people, not many. And we were told that we're a melting pot. But I learned what that meant. I learned that we all assimilated. We all assimilated to become American. But then I wrote this book and I said, America has gone from America, the melting pot, to America, the multi-culti pot, to America, the chamber pot. And I wrote, as you well know, a chamber pot holds nothing of value and nothing worth preserving. So once the sheeple come to view America as a chamber pot, they won't have a sense of national identity. They will have no sense of national unity, no sense of national pride, no sense of responsibility, no national honor. Those are powerful words. Written in 2002. I'm going to read that again. It's very important you remember these. As you well know, a chamber pot holds nothing of value and nothing worth preserving. So once the sheeple come to view America as a chamber pot, they won't have a sense of national identity. They will have no sense of national unity, no sense of national pride, no sense of responsibility, no national honor. Ultimately, America, the chamber pot, puts this country on the pathway to apathy and anarchy, I wrote. And that, as the liberals know, is the perfect climate in which to reap the fruits of socialism. Pushing us further along that pathway to apathy and anarchy is the attack by the left upon the cultural backbone of the nation. So how do they do this? Well, many different ways. Pornography, crime, defund the police, glorify the scum of the earth by accusing you of collective guilt for being European American. They claimed you and I were oppressing and abusing, fill in the blank, whoever you want to fill in. We were oppressing and abusing, just fill in the blank. The gays, the blacks, the Latinos, the Asians, the Indians, the plants, bugs, minerals, the ozone, the small daughter, the snail daughter, the wetlands, and the moon. We oppressed it all. The left figured out long ago that social chaos is a wonderful tool to help them usher in their socialist worldview. Having labeled you and I as intolerant cavemen, their solution has been to sell multiculturalism as a good, even a preferred social construct to nationalism. And with multiculturalism, immigrants don't attempt to assimilate the dominant culture. Instead, they retain their distinct cultural heritages. They don't bother to learn English, choosing to speak their own language and then demand that we print ballots in 18 languages. And in the spirit of multiculturalism, they'll sue you in a heartbeat if you don't acquiesce to their ethnic sensitivities. I wrote that in 2002 when I saw what was happening in San Francisco, where Nancy Pelosi orchestrated the printing of ballots in 16 languages so the illegal invaders could vote for her and create the hellhole called California of today. So now I get to the punchline here before I conclude today's Borders, Language, and Culture. Does God want America to survive? I don't know. I'm not God. I haven't spoken to God. I see him in snapshots. Actually, I had a nightmare last night, which triggered me in the middle of the night, and I screamed again to God to let me live. This happens very often. I believe we fight to live almost every day inside ourselves, and we could decide to live or die literally in the moment. I mean, you could decide to die right this minute. You could throw yourself out of a building. You could listen to this podcast and turn your car off the road. I mean, you could kill yourself right now. But mentally, we decide to live or die, I think, each day. And some of us fight and some of us acquiesce and give in. In fact, some of us even invite our death. Assisted suicide now is the norm in some countries in Europe. In Holland, 18-year-olds are now committing suicide if they're depressed. Can you believe this? And they're encouraged, by the way, to commit suicide. Euthanasia, they call it. What Hitler did against unwilling people, they're doing to each other willingly in Holland and in Oregon, I should add. Some of us, though, fight it. Some of us fight the conquest. Some of us fight the death wish. Some of us invite the conquest. Some of us invite the death wish. So this chapter, Dancing on the Cultural Abyss, had a chapter, the end of the chapter was called Weimar Once Again. And I wrote on page 153 of this all-important book. Remember, it was a number one. It took the nation by storm when I published it in 2002. I have to go back. I think 2002, 2003, 02, Michael Weiner, PhD. I concluded this chapter with Weimar Once Again. America is now living through the equivalent social chaos that the Germans experienced in the Weimar Republic in pre-Hitler Germany before 1933. Like cancer on the Democrat side, we have the same diseased radical political leadership infecting all levels of government. These carcinogenic cells cater to pornographers, drug dealers, perverts, foreign immigrants, and foreign competitors. These leaders disdain church, family, fathers, mothers, children, and decency. Believe me, and as recent history has demonstrated, there is no essential difference between the Democrats and the leadership of the Weimar Republic. They share the same mentality. For years, the same disturbed mindset has come back to haunt us again. In the Democrat America, justice is not only blindfolded, she has been bound and prostituted. Justice has become a perverted masquerade where those in power are innocent even when proven guilty, and where average Americans are guilty with no money to prove their innocence. Their rights are mocked, and their values are the brunt of filthy humor. When this kind of disease appears on Earth, nature usually follows it by the opposite. When the world collapses this way, what happens? What inevitably follows this kind of decadence? Simply that at some point, anarchy and social decay are followed by tyranny and oppression, as they were in Weimar Germany. But unlike Weimar today, we delude ourselves by thinking it can't happen in America. A leading Democrat recently claimed before a radical gay group that the greatest problem today is hatred. But he himself is the source of this hatred. He and the others have done more than anyone to promulgate hostility and division among the groups of our society. They push hatred, envy, and suspicion wherever they go while feigning compassion and understanding. The truth is, I wrote, the demon cats are still up to their politics of personal destruction. Behind the smiles, finger wagging, and promises, there are only arrogance, corruption, and deceit. Need we follow, I asked? Wasn't one Weimar enough? In addition to the perversion of justice and the attack upon our cherished institutions of faith and family, these liberals, so called, stoke the flames of cultural chaos with their refusal to establish the recognition of English as the official language of the United States. We're told if you speak 3 languages, you're trilingual. If you speak 2 languages, you're bilingual. If you speak 1 language, you're an American. Can't you see that these social engineers are insulting you? They collectively stick their pious noses in the air as they lecture the American people about the deficiency of speaking just 1 language. Once again, you are the problem. Come to think of it, your narrow-mindedness and your refusal to learn the language of the immigrant population, that's a hate crime. But then I wrote, 1 language allows us to work together, to pull in the same direction, and to communicate effectively with one another. Progress stops when people can't communicate with each other. Ever hear of the biblical account of the Tower of Babel? Go read it. Go read it sometime. Genesis 11, 1 through 9, Tower of Babel. Genesis 11, 1 through 9. And you'll see that anyone who insists several languages are better than one is wrong. In fact, every current study has shown that children who are immersed in the English language when they come to America do better in school. I can go on and read more from this book of mine, but I think I made my point about borders, language, and culture today. 2002, I'm still fighting the good fight with my most recent book. Those are some of my books behind me. I've decided to show you some of them, the covers. They're right here, not in particular order. And there they are. There's my old boy, Teddy. He's buried up on the hill over there, buried on a beautiful mountain and draped in fog right now over his grave and his little headstone. Does a dog have borders, language, and culture? I don't know. Even dogs mark their territory. I mean, I think about it. Even dogs mark their territory. And we who have a territory called America have permitted ourselves to see our country taken from us right in front of our own eyes. Our own eyes. Borders, language, and culture. My 3 words which have and will shape the future of civilization. Borders, language, and culture. I tried to avoid people this weekend. I had basically been a hermit. Wherever I went, I just heard gibberish. Not bad people. Not bad people. White people, I'm saying. White people here in the suburbs. Where was I when I heard them? They were, I don't know, arguing over how many egg rolls to buy in a takeout Chinese place. I looked at them and I knew that they have no idea of borders, language, and culture. Not bad people. I mean, if I fell down, they would probably call 911 and try to comfort me, but they have no idea of borders, language, and culture. They're good liberals, you see. And if a leader comes along and wants to kick out those who want to kick us out of our own country by deporting them, these good people who are arguing over how many egg rolls to buy would probably find that to be racist and insensitive. But I do separate immigrants into 2 camps, as does Bardella in France. Desirable immigrants who assimilate, learn English, and love this great nation. And those, particularly those from Islamic countries, who reject American values, language, and culture. They spit on us. Look at their faces. They dress their women in 15th century tents. That's your idea of a culture you want in this nation? Women walking around wearing tents, covering their faces. They belong in this country? Are you insane? Look at Sweden. Look what Sweden did when, after they got rid of the toughest of men, when the lesbian feminists and pinko liberals in Sweden took over, they started cursing the real descendants of the Vikings. And look what they are today. They're afraid to walk around in their own cities. Their daughters are being raped in front of their eyes, and the police hide in the police station. Borders, language, and culture. Does God want America to survive? I don't know. We'll have to see. Has God turned his back on America because we turned our back on God? I don't know. I know all about the flaws. I know about the conquest. I began by talking about Native Americans. I know it all. Are we a perfect nation? No. But we're a great nation. We were a great nation. We still are and still could be a great nation. But it's going to take tremendous willpower within all of us. Each of us will either be a soldier in this battle. You're in the battle whether you want to know it or not. And you're either a soldier in the battle or a prisoner. You're either going to be a soldier or a slave in this battle. Make no mistake about it. Either a soldier or a slave in this battle for our survival as a nation. Think very carefully about what I'm saying to you. Think very, very carefully. Well, I thank you for listening. There's not much more I can say. I could keep talking for hours, and I know many of you would like me to do so. You know, it's a Sunday morning. It's early here. I get up very early, and you'd like to hear my mellifluous voice soothe you into the day. Oh, God put me here for a reason. I know what my reason is. I know what my raison d'etre is, my French listeners. It's to profess the mantra of borders, language, and culture, to see if Western civilization can survive the onslaught from within and from without. I have nothing to conclude with. You know, this is on YouTube and on Twitter right now. Soon we'll post it on Instagram and Facebook. That's about it. If you like it on YouTube, you can hit the like button. You can subscribe so you know when I'm going to do these things. If you're on YouTube, you get a notification when I decide to go live. I don't really have a set time for any of these talks. I tend to only do the same time or the same one on Sunday mornings, which is generally known as God Talk. And this is God Talk, by the way, today. I just didn't want to lead it with the words God Talk because, as I said to you at the beginning, the algorithms within the computers, if you put God first, it's not going to be as big as Borders first, I think. But you can call it God Talk. Why don't you just share this YouTube or Twitter thing with 10 friends? Why don't you do something for America today? I told you you're either a soldier or did I say a prisoner? A soldier or a slave? Why don't you be a soldier today? Do your share. Take this broadcast on Twitter or wherever you're seeing it and share it with 2 friends, 110 friend. Share it with an entire church group. Send it out to a mass mailing list because I can't do this on my own anymore. You want to be a soldier or a slave? I'm Michael Savage. Thank you. And I should say thank God for having me born, number one, born in America, number two. You know, I sent this to a cousin. I have to read this to you if I could find it. It's very hard when I don't plan these things that carefully to find things I want. I hope it pops up. There it is. I got it. I sent this to a cousin I haven't talked to for years, but he turned 80 recently. And we don't talk very. We were friendly. We lived next to each other in a tenement at 829 Longfellow Avenue when we were kids. We used to play all the time, and we've lost touch with each other. And we share a grandfather, and I sent him a video of a rabbi who went to my grandfather's grave. And I sent it to him. We don't talk at all, really. I haven't seen him in years. So I said, the rabbis love me, so they pay their respects and pray for our grandfather. I hope we will be so fortunate. But after all these years of study and thought, it may all be a void, I said to him. I said, your thoughts. After all these years of study and thought, I said, it may all be a void. And I asked him his thoughts. And here's what he wrote me. I think it's worth reading some of it. He says, Michael, we're all born, which is lucky in itself. Then we need some more luck, good parents and a decent family. Extra luck, we were born here in America. 80 years have gone quite fast, he said, gone by quite fast. And he says he enjoyed almost all of them, living now with family close by. I'm happy for each day. He said, when we're gone, it's over. Not going anywhere, not going to meet or be united with anyone. Just trying to enjoy what's left. Can't worry about things beyond my control. The void is there and we have to relax and accept it. Well, you see, I don't see it that way. I don't believe that we're not going to be reunited with anyone. I don't believe that we can't control things beyond our control. You see, that's the mantra that destroys our will to survive, our will to have our nation survive. Is once we start thinking we can't do anything about it, then they've won. It's over. Oh, we could do a lot about it. We could deport them, the illegal immigrants, starting with the latest wave of Biden's 12 million. You deport them. Oh, it'll be a war in the streets. Make no mistake about it. But that's what the hell the military's for. That's what National Guard is for, is to guard the nation, you idiots, you. National Guard, guard the nation. Put them on the border with Mexico. Start with that. National Guard, not to arrest women who are against abortion. We have National Guard in every state. Put them on the borders of every state and start deporting the illegal aliens. Say we can't do anything about it? Sure we can. Sure we can. We can do a lot about it. We need the willpower within ourselves, number one. First, we need the idea to deport them. Then we need the willpower to act on it. Then we need the politicians to enact for us. And there's only a handful. We know Trump is the leader of that, which is why they've targeted him with their illegal laws, their crazy attacks. Anyone who stands up for borders, language, and culture is cut down like an enemy by the degenerate scum who are running everything in this nation right now, who have put a senile internationalist into the most powerful chair on earth, not to defend and protect us, but to make sure we don't survive as a nation with a clear identity of borders, language, and culture. Oh, he'll send billions to the criminal Zelensky to protect Ukraine's borders, language, and culture. Think about the irony of that. He annihilates our border, spits on our language and our culture, celebrates perversity, and he supports Zelensky so Zelensky can defend its borders, language, and culture against Russia, which is defending its borders, language, and culture. Think about this. Try to put two and two together. Don't be like those two idiots arguing over how many egg rolls to buy in a Chinese takeout stand today. Think about one thing only in your spare time. Do you want this nation to survive or don't you? Are you going to be a soldier or a slave? I'm Michael Savage. God bless America, and thanks for listening. Send it to 10